Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. Today we're talking about the no-code platform Glide. We're happy to have Jesus Vargas on the show to learn more about Glide and how he's using it at his agency. How you doing, Jesus?
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome.
Hey, Jesus. Hey, Matt. How are you guys doing?
How are you?
Doing great.
I'm doing great. And Jesus is joining us from Mexico, but you live in the States, in Florida.
I'm back in Miami now. Yeah.
I'm back in Miami. Oh, okay. So I'm actually the one that is recording this from out of the country.
Yeah.
I'm in Israel right now. So I'm glad we're able to touch base and do this recording. Let's start with tell us about yourself. Tell us about your agency, what you guys are doing.
Sure. I own a business called Low Code Agency, and we build products, software, MVPs, and internal tools for entrepreneurs and businesses using these no-code and low-code tools. We are very proficient. We're very good with Glide apps. It's the tool that we have used the most to build apps. We have a team of 7 people. We've built over 240 apps, MVP solutions for our clients so far. Yeah, we're a US-based company, all remote, but we mainly serve the US market.
Excellent.
Nice. And how do you get to that? I mean, no-code is a pretty recent development, I guess, in the development world, right?
I mean, yes and no. Because if you think about it, if you think about WordPress as a website builder, it has been around for over 20 years, right? And there are other, let's say, low-code tools around that have been in the market for quite a while. However, I think that the term no-code and low-code is pretty new, right? These tools being called low-code builders or no-code builders, I think that's a pretty new or recent thing. In terms of Glide was launched almost 3 years ago. And before that, I was working and building software. I mean, not myself, I was like selling and project managing software development with traditional coded tools, right? Eventually I found these no-code tools and I was like, finally, I can make apps myself, right? I don't have to depend on my partner, on a software developer to build something. I can build it myself now.
Right.
So that's how I kind of got started.
Yeah. So a product manager that says, I'm gonna build tools and I don't have the development resources. So that's the perfect case of what we're looking for when it comes to no code and product management. So excellent.
Yeah, I think that's something that we see as product managers or project owners every day, right? We want to build our own things because we understand the problem, but we always depend on someone else to build things for us. So these no-code tools really allow us to do this project ourselves.
Right. So give us some examples of like, what's your favorite product maybe that you built with Glide?
I mean, we've done a lot of projects, but I would say it depends, right? We mainly have 2 types of clients. We build a lot of MVPs. So let's say non-technical founders who have an idea. And it's usually people who are very, very good at their industry, like doctors and nurses or lawyers. And they come up with a unique idea that can help their niche or their industry. And they don't know how to develop that. So building an MVP for them is something very unique. And we'll learn about niche industries or opportunities in many different markets. For example, we built an MVP for coin collectors, right? So I had never came across anyone collecting coins, but it's a very unique thing, right? And the process in terms of how you collect a coin and then you send it out to a certain company to get it graded, and then it gets it increases in value as time passes and you send it over for grading and all of that. It's a very unique process. It's a very interesting market. And then we built this very cool and very specific MVP for this guy who's very into that business. And we learned a lot. It was a great project. He's very happy. He had a few beta testers using the app and he's grown, right? So very niche, very unique. And then on the other hand, we have typical use cases at medium-sized businesses where people are using spreadsheets to track data or to manage data, right? So it's very typical that you have software in your company, and there's a process that the software that you use, so you end up exporting the data into a Google Sheet, into an Excel file, Airtable, and then everybody comes in and edits the data and deletes data, and it becomes a mess, right? So building an app on top of that data, on top of that spreadsheet, and then I always tell people that we build little octopuses, right? So the data is the brain, the head of the octopus, and then it has multiple legs that connect to all of your various different tools and softwares that you're using at your company. And that really is a game changer for medium-sized businesses, because now they can really not only have a lot less errors, but also start automating a lot of things. But like in terms of my favorite one, probably that the numismatic, the coin collector app is something very unique, very, very cool.
Nice. Yeah. So in order to prepare for this episode, I was like trying Glide out, and because I want to see what it is and to try things out. And it is pretty simple to use. I did a couple of things, actually. One of them was very similar to what you mentioned. I had an Excel spreadsheet, not so much for internal people not to mess up with the spreadsheet, but more for actually I tried it with a spreadsheet that we're using to manage our plans for our episodes. So we have like all of our ideas, what episodes we could do, what products we can work on, and then we have in the list episodes that we already published in the past. And I just connected it quickly with Glide and was able to create a mobile app very quickly with the list of episodes that you can go and scroll through them and then open each one of them and the link to the actual episode so you can listen to it. I don't know if there is really a use for that, because most people are just using podcasting applications to listen to their podcast. But as an experience to try out the product was actually pretty cool and pretty easy.
Glide does a great job around making it very easy for people starting out to build something very quickly, right? So right away, in a few minutes, in a couple hours, you get an app, right? And that's very powerful. And then you can keep on working or adding more features or connecting to different things. But the time to app from 0 to 1, Glide is the best at that.
Right. I really liked it because it was like almost a special experience for our listeners, our product for product application. And it kind of gave us the idea of like, what if this application could scale to community chat or something like that, as opposed to being on Spotify or being on Apple Podcasts, to where you're in the mix with everyone else. It is a unique experience. Yeah.
And that's an interesting thought. And the question is, to you, Jesus, after the basic things of creating an app like that was really simple. What are the extra powers that Glide give you? Do they give you other things? I noticed there is a chat option, so I created it over there, but it's quite simple chat between different, I think everyone using the app. But how complex can it become? I mean, how deep can you go? Like you mentioned, an MVP that you created. MVPs usually are, a proof of concept, or they are really the basics that sometimes a no-code system that is limited is a good thing, because you don't want to get into too many details. But then when you get into something more sophisticated, you still have to go through some development. So where is that line exactly in Glide?
I think, at least in our experience, you can go very complicated in Glide. I mean, you saw the chat feature, the default chat feature that Glide has, but you could even set up like specific group chats based on your subscription tier, for example. Like you could have like an admin chat, or you can set up something where only certain people can chat with each other, or only, I don't know, your clients can chat with you. I mean, there are a lot of things that can be done. When I talk about MVPs, it's very unusual when there's an idea that can't be done in Glide. It's more about scalability, right? So when we talk about an MVP, every single feature, like 95% of features that people want from an MVP can be done in Glide. With Glide, we don't focus a lot in terms of design, in terms of user interface, UI, right? Because that's something that Glide already provides. And I think they do a great job. I mean, when you were playing around with Glide, you saw that Glide has the buttons already pre-built, right? So it's not like you have to build a button and, I don't know, add a gradient to the button when you hover on top of the button, right? Those are things that you don't spend your time on because you actually want functionality, right? And that, I think that's very important when we're building an MVP. You want functionality over design. So when we're building MVPs, the main limitation is usually the size or how many people are using the app, right? And you can have a few thousand people using a Glide app before you have to move to something else.
I see. So you would say that a few hundred people, it still works okay, but scaling more to a few thousand, then usually it doesn't.
Correct. Yeah. Depending on what users are doing in the app. But yeah, probably, like between 2,000 and 5,000 users, and then you'll have to move to something else.
The other use case I was playing with actually was something related to my work. So we're developing now a new software and a new stack, and we have a component in there that is user administration. So for the user administration, I don't really want to have the developer spending time on creating the user interface for me with all the administration of users. It's quite, it's an obvious thing how the interface could work and stuff like that. Like you have a list of users, you add a user, you change the user details, you assign a role to the user, and you're done, right? So I created very quickly using their own internal database, not the Excel integration. Sorry, not the Google Sheets integration, but their own database, which works really very similar. It works in a very similar way, which I really liked. And it created creating the users, creating the roles, creating the companies, created user types and stuff like that. What then I got into more complex things is how do I connect that with the backend APIs that my developers already developed to create users. And that's we had a few we have a bit of chat on LinkedIn where I was asking you that. So these are still things that are possible to do, or you need another product to do that?
We usually use either Zapier or Integromat, now called Make, to connect Glide to other things via webhooks or the API. There are enterprise clients in Glide. They have full access to the API, so they really can leverage Glide to the max. Glide has a native integration as well on the enterprise level with MySQL. So if your company runs on their database on MySQL, then it's pretty simple to set up. It's pretty straightforward to connect Glide to different tools.
Yeah, so I did try not Zapier. I used in the past Zapier, but I tried the other product. What was the name again?
Integromat.
I think they made a change. They call it Make now.
Yeah, make.com.
Right. And that was also for me a fun one to try out. So I was able actually to create like the webhook and connect the webhook to Glide. And then I started with just sending emails to myself, so I will be able to see it actually works. But the next step is getting those APIs from my team and see if I can actually connect everything together. But this could be another time saving for us, as product managers, that we, these trivial things that we don't really need a lot of development time from our developers. They should really focus on the important things, on building the product that our end users, the real personas are going to use, where the internal stuff, all the administration stuff could be really done by a no code with a bit of integration with APIs, I think.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to build everything. There are so many tools out there. And something like this will save you X amount of development hours and X amounts of headaches, right? And you can own the product yourself. By spending a few hours, you build an integration, you build a little app that functions as your admin dashboard, and you have full access, right? And you don't have to have someone build this thing from scratch.
Now, the thing with Glide is that they support both web applications and mobile applications, but the mobile applications are they native applications or not? Because I was able to just publish it as a URL, not really as an application.
Yeah, Glide apps are progressive web apps. So Glide has a couple different products. One is the mobile app, Glide Apps, and then there's a new product called Glide Pages, which is more like a desktop-first experience. In both cases, both are fully responsive, but in both cases, they're PWA, so progressive web apps, and Glide apps cannot be published as native apps.
And how do your clients or users take those? Are they happy with that?
I mean, of course, there are people that want a native app, right? And then it's not possible in Glide. But at the same, I think it depends, right? If you're building an MVP, where do you want to invest your money? Do you want to spend your time and money fighting with Apple in order to get your MVP published to the App Store when you're going to get 20 users, right? Or do you actually want to focus on functionality and getting 20 to 100 users, right? So I think it's about your I don't know, your vision maybe. I think it's more important to get users and feedback and product market fit than spending X amount of hours getting your app in the App Store. And on the other hand, for let's say enterprise clients or business clients, they don't really care, right? If it's a little ad where I don't know, 100 of your clients log in and fill out a form, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Just quickly, there are other no-code tools and low-code tools that actually produce native apps, right? Or you get apps that you can compile them and publish in the App Store. But Glide is not. Glide tried it a couple years ago. It really didn't work out. I think their focus is not there. And then they stopped that project of getting apps in the App Store.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask. When it comes to Glide, you chose to focus, I guess, mainly on Glide, but was Bubble in consideration, or do you use Bubble in certain cases versus Glide? We also talked about Adalo, Softer, and some of the other things. So do you use those as well?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't. I don't feel very comfortable with Bubble, but at the agency, we build Bubble apps. We have built software apps. We use other, let's say, more robust platforms like DraftBid, Flutterflow. So there are a bunch of different tools, and it all depends on the use case, right, of the client. I personally feel very comfortable with Glide. I've been with Glide for since they started. But of course, I understand that Glide is not the right fit for every project, right? So we do take projects that when Glide's not the right fit, we might use something else to build it.
Okay.
You know, our podcast is audio only. So if you had to describe to our listeners, you know, when you use Glide, you know, what do they see? How does it look like exactly? And why does it make it really simple to build apps using it?
The Glide Builder is an interface where you have on your left sidebar a list of components or elements, right? And components are things like buttons or lists or images, videos. So you drag and drop those components onto your screen, and the screen is either a little phone or a tablet or desktop view, and you just point that component, that button, to something, to an item in your database. So it's like a drag and drop interface where you start building very visually, and there are no lines of code. So if you already have a spreadsheet, let's think about you having a spreadsheet, as you mentioned, Moshe, with your with a list of users, a column for emails, a column for names, a column for, I don't know, role, right? So 3 columns on your Excel sheet. You connect that to your Glide app. Glide by default will try to make something, right? So Glide, if you connect that spreadsheet to Glide, it'll create a list of data with email. Each element, each thing will be a name, an email, and a role, right? And then you can configure things around. So maybe you have a profile picture, a link to a profile picture in your database. So you would drag an image component, place it on your screen, and then link that image component to the image column in your spreadsheet, and then it'll bring over an image, right? Instead of displaying that as a text, you'll display it as an image. So very visually, very, very straightforward. You can start building something right away, as long as you already have a database with data.
And that was actually something I really liked, that they built something for me already.
Yeah.
And I had several worksheets in the same spreadsheet, and they created like a different page for each one of those and created a whole menu. And I was able to just say, you know what, this one I don't want to show, this one show, this one don't want to show. So I already had a whole menu with the specific worksheets that I wanted to show, and each of the worksheet had a list of items, and each one of those became like an actual element and component that they already built for me. So that was really nice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think Glide is good for getting started. You connect your spreadsheet to Glide, and right away you can very visually understand how things work and change things around to display the data the right way you want to look at it.
Yeah. And I can tell you from trying out Bubble in the past, I definitely felt that the learning curve here was much faster. So it was much smaller, and I was able to do something very fast.
I think Glide is great for that, right? Because right away you can get something very quickly. In our experience at the agency, when building a Glide app, for example, compared that to a Bubble app, we build Glide apps 4 times faster than a Bubble app, right?
Wow.
So in terms of pricing, in terms of time to market, time to delivery, Glide apps are very fast and very, for very price sensitive clients. Glides are great, right? Because you produce something super quickly because there's so much that you can do in terms of logic, but you are very limited in terms of the user interface, which I always say it's sometimes and usually something good, right? Because if you're building an MVP, probably you're not a design expert. And if you're a design expert, maybe Glide is not for you, right? It's about functionality. And if you're building something for your company, you really shouldn't care that much about the user interface. Glide has, I always tell our clients, Glide has the best designers in the market. Like they pay California, like San Francisco salaries to get the best designers in the market. So let them handle the design and you focus on functionality for your app. And I think in many cases that works.
Yeah, it still felt very fresh, very modern. So
it's clean. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Are there any things you don't like at Glide, or that you would like them to change or improve or add?
I think the most challenging, my biggest task for Glide right now is the size of the database, right? So the main limitation that we have with Glide is the size of the database. Right now, Glide can only handle around 25,000 rows of data. So when you have a very data-intensive process in a company, Glide is not always the best fit, right? If you're creating 1,000 rows of data every day, I don't know, let's say you have, you run your inventory in your company and you have, I don't know, thousands of SKUs and thousands of movements per day, then Glide won't be the right fit. So I know that's something they're working on, but it's not something that we have today. So the size of the database is our biggest pain point usually.
Yeah, that's something Moshe and I talked about, the ability to scale. So you come in, you start using and building that MVP out, but you got to really have a strategy to say, how far do you want to take this? Do you want this thing to become, bigger than life? And that's a consideration you need to have before you start getting all this set up. I appreciate you bringing that up.
No, it's important. But at the same time, I always tell clients, getting this MVP out there and getting your first few clients, users, whatever. I mean, getting an app built, I don't want to say it's easy. These no-code and low-code tools make it easier, right, for a lot of people. But I think the challenge is always on user acquisition, right? How do you get users? Are users willing to pay for your product? So I don't think that scale is something that people at the MVP stage should spend a lot of time thinking on, right? Get your app up there, get your MVP out. And when you get 300 customers or 3,000 users, think about that, right? Because if you get 3,000 paying users in a Glide app, you'll be able to raise money, or at least you'll know what you need, right? We have gone through that process with a few clients, with very few though, that we've built MVPs for, that they get to that point, they get to their goal with their MVP. When we're speaking with a client, with a lead, I always ask them, for this MVP, what is the goal? What do you want to get from this MVP? Either X amount of users, X amount of revenue. What is the goal, right? Because you have to have a very specific goal in order to get a good Glide app. Because Glide app won't be your forever app, right? So you have to have a goal. And then when you get to that goal, you know what you need to get to the next step, right? So now we understand our customers. Now we understand what they need, what they're willing to pay for. Now we are willing to spend $150,000 getting our, what I call our forever app, right? The app that you will never outgrow. But you have already validated so many things. And we've seen that with a lot of clients. Mm-hmm. They pivot so many times, right? And it's great. And that's what Glide is for, and these no-code tools are for, because you spend a fraction of time and cost compared to traditional development when you're using these no-code tools. And that's a great advantage. Instead of having to hire a full stack developer that's going to charge you a couple $100 per hour, and then you want to do a change, it'll take a couple days, $1,000, right? It doesn't make sense when you're at the MVP stage.
And that's why we're so strongly believe that product managers should use no-code platforms much more than they do today, and why we hope that this series is going to be really interesting and encouraging for product managers, because product managers are maybe they're not founders of organizations with no funds, but they still should behave like that. We should really look into how do we, in the cheapest way, check our MVP, check that our assumptions are correct, check that people will actually use what we're building for them. So why spend a lot of money on something if they will never really use it?
Yeah, we've seen with some larger clients that their development teams are completely overwhelmed, right? And product managers want to try something out, but it's hard for them to get resources when their development teams are completely overwhelmed. So it's like, hey, try this yourself, or I don't know, hire someone like us to get an MVP out quickly and cheaply, validate the idea, and then if it makes sense, now you have a stronger case to bring to your development team, saying, hey, I've already tried this. I know our clients will use it, or I know our internal team will save X amount of hours or make more money based on this product. Now I need it, right? So testing for product managers, for product owners, using these no-code tools to test and validate their needs before they go back internally and ask for resources, it helps them. At the end, it helps them get what they need.
Good point. How is the company behind it? How is Glide support-wise and listening to their users?
Glide is a very small team. I don't know how many people they have, but probably around 10 people working Glide, maybe a little bit more. So they move very fast. Something that we at the company like very much about Glide. They move very fast. They fix bugs very quickly. They keep launching new features very quickly. And at least in our case, we are Glide partners as well as Integromat are now Make partners. And at least with Glide, we have a very good relationship, and they listen to us very closely. We are the largest GlideOps agency though, but we have we have calls with them very often in terms of product, in terms of pricing, in terms of new features that we need, that we feel that clients are asking for. So yeah, they're very open to feedback and listening to their customers.
That's always good to hear. And I didn't know there is such a small company. This is really impressive.
Yes, it is very impressive, because if you look at the other companies, Software, Bubble, they're much larger companies. I don't know if you saw recently the Bubble pricing thing. They launched a new pricing model. Everybody freaked out. And a few hours later, the founder said, we'll pause on the new pricing. So I think Glide does a very good job at listening to their clients. At the same time, they also have to figure out the best way. All of these companies are newish, right? So they all have to figure out the best way for them to make more money. I don't know, to grow, to get their money back to their investors. So they all, I don't want to say struggle with pricing. That's something that they are all figuring it out. But I think that Glide does a good job listening to their clients.
Yeah, their pricing seems to be relatively fair, I suppose. It's free, then $32 a month for pro app, then $40, and then it scales to enterprise level. We're wrapping up soon, but another thing I wanted to call out was they have templates to get started. So if you are looking to use Glide to build a prototype or an MVP, they do have some templates to get started. So I think that's really valuable.
And you can also copy other Glide applications and start from that. I think that I looked at some of your examples, Jesus, from your website. And I was able to, there was a button over there to copy it over so I could take it as a base template, right?
Yeah, that's possible as well.
Yeah, so when you learn from someone that has done and it so many times before, you can definitely, I guess, learn one or two tricks there.
There are hundreds of templates to copy from. There are a lot of resources. The community is very active. So in the forum, there are always people helping, and there are a lot of resources available, like YouTube videos, documentation. So yeah.
Yeah,
nice.
That's great to get started. And then one of the other products they have is called Data Editor, and that's probably what you're using, or Moshe you used, where you can sync and automate your data. It works off the CSV, Excel, Google Sheets framework. So
Airtable, yeah, exactly.
Yep, Airtable, yeah. So that's probably what you encountered when you were making that, Moshe.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, it was pretty simple. They even said that there was an alpha over there for Microsoft Excel files.
Oh, there you go.
So that's coming too.
Yeah, I think it's great because it lowers the barrier of apprehension when it comes to making these things. So people might be apprehensive about, like, how do I build this? How do I start? I'm not familiar with data architecture. I'm not familiar with this framework, front end, back end stuff. So even someone new that's trying to be a product manager can come in here and get started relatively easily and do a proof of concept to help promote themselves to become a product manager.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say thank you so much, Jesus, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I think we learned quite a bit.
Sure.
Do you have any other questions, Moshe?
No, that was great. Really, thank you for joining us today. And I'm sure we will hear more and more about no-code and about Glide, because this is really a very interesting...
Great way to get started into the no-code space. Glide apps, it's a very good tool for that. And then there are a lot of other more robust or more complex tools, but probably start with Glide. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. Play around with it, and then it'll be your starting point for getting down the rabbit hole in the no-code space.
What's a good place for people to reach you if they want to learn more about Glide, about low-code, no-code, or about your agency?
So for Glide, it's glideapps.com. For me, you can find us at lowcode.agency. And I think at the website, we have a link to our templates. We have a bunch of free templates on the Glide template store. We have a course in YouTube to learn Glide as well, in my YouTube channel under my name, Jesus Vargas, Glide apps, I think. But yeah, lowcode.agency is our website, and you can find a lot of our work over there.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much. Thank you, Moshe. Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back again soon.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Matt. Take care.
Thanks, guys.